2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hit it!
Hey, and welcome to Segalicious, the series with a stupid name where we explore Sega games, both old and new. This is the 4th episode, and as the previous 3 focused on awesome games from the Dreamcast era, I wanted to go back a bit and cover a 16-bit game, one that I used to play a lot as a kid actually. The games that I've covered before in the previous episodes are ones that I'm a big fan of, but for today's video, I wanted to cover a game that gave me a lot of mixed feelings back in the day. Upon re-downloading it, I was reintroduced to the ghastly, nightmarish, and macabre world of what Sega had to offer to us in the mid-90s. And as I'm a lot better at games now than I was as a kid, I thought that I would have an easier time getting through this game, but Sonic Spinball is still confusing as hell. Developed by Sega's American division, Sega Technical Institute, or STI for short, which is a very unfortunate name by the way, Sonic Spinball is exactly what it looks like. You guide Sonic as a pinball of sorts through various levels with the goal of finding all the Chaos Emeralds, but look, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Okay, let's take a deep breath and dive into a game that has been haunting me for all these years now, and let's see if we can wrap our heads around Sonic Spinball. Even though this is a pinball game, it still has a story, believe it or not. The evil Dr. Eggman, or Dr. Robotnik as he was called in those days, has built a fortress on planet Mobius to turn its animals into his robot minions. Once Sonic and Tails get wind of this plan, however, they decide to infiltrate the fortress and stop Dr. Robotnik from being a right prick. It's not exactly Raging Bull in terms of cinematic complexity, but I do like the game's simple story, as it provides ample reasoning as to why all these shenanigans are going on in the first place. Also, the concept of Sonic acting as a pinball is pretty weird, isn't it? As it would probably make more sense for him to just run and jump around like normal, right? I wanted to know more, so I did some research, and according to a piece in Retro Gamer magazine from a few years ago, after Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out in late 1992 and ended world hunger, fans were clamoring for a new installment, and they wanted it as soon as possible. After looking at their plan, Sega realized that the then in development Sonic the Hedgehog 3 simply couldn't be finished in time for a 1993 launch, probably due to Yuji Naka committing many crimes, so the higher-ups at Sega of America were like, look, okay guys, we need to release another Sonic game soon, so let's internally commission one to get the ball rolling, and while our Japanese friends are busy with Sonic 3, let's make a spin-off. STI designer Peter Moraweek, at least I think I pronounced that right, then drafted an idea of Sonic as a pinball after the team realized just how popular Casino Night Zone was in Sonic 2, and after making some test animations of Sonic rolling around and jumping, the project was quickly approved. The whole game was developed in under a year, 9 months to be exact, which is really impressive, and stories involving changing programming languages and collaborations between America and Japan made up a bulk of my research. With the history lesson out of the way, let's now dive into the substance of Sonic Spinball, meaning the gameplay. Like other Genesis games, the mechanics and control scheme of Sonic Spinball are pretty easy to wrap your head around, and if you have experience playing pinball, you'll quickly understand how to play this game. In a unique twist on the genre, you can freely control Sonic both on the ground and in the air, providing players with more control over what goes on in the game. There are 4 levels here, and they each contain different themes and obstacles. The goal is to get points, defeat enemies, and obtain the Chaos Emeralds all without running out of lives, so I hope you get used to the game's physics engine quickly. I never realized this as a kid, but Sonic Spinball actually has some light sandbox game elements, meaning that even though there's a clear and defined goal for you to achieve, it's up to you how you do it. The game lets you experiment with different ways to gain points, and there aren't many restrictions on what you can do and where you can go. Barricades do pop up every now and then, but you can bypass these when you get enough points, encouraging players to find them as quickly as possible. Playing fast is the whole point of the Sonic series, right? So I do think that this is very fitting. Also, instead of having a hole for Sonic to fall down if he goes below the flippers, you can usually save yourself from dying by jumping on this platform before this nightmare demon creature comes out of his domain to eat Sonic, and this thing used to traumatize me as a kid, I swear. Anyway, things start off pretty simple in the first level, and you can think of this as a tutorial of sorts to help you learn the controls. Like real-world pinball, manipulating the ball's physics is the key to getting a high score, so instead of just focusing on where you want the ball to go, it's also helpful to think of how it's going to get there. Calculating Sonic's power levels and direction in your head before shooting him out is very important, and a smart play can easily net you a lot of points. Doing well means you'll eventually pick up one of the aforementioned Chaos Emeralds, and doing this not only feels great, but it also usually unlocks new parts of the map. This is easier said than done though, as the top 2 comments on a YouTube upload of the first level's music implies that making any progress in this game is a real challenge, which I'll get to in a bit. Much like real pinball, it's also very easy to lose progress too. I have so many memories of when I was a kid of just barely missing a pathway or an item that I wanted Sonic to make contact with, and it meant that I'd have to attempt to reach it again and again and again. Not to mention, these may look simple if you're just spectating, but actually trying to wrap your head around these labyrinths always gave me trouble, and it still does now. I simply don't have the brain power or just the IQ to memorize these maps from top to bottom, and they make as much sense as my friend's ex-wife, meaning none at all. It's not all bad though, as you definitely can have some fun with the game once you get used to all of its systems, and doing something like this is like taking a bullet train straight to Dopamine Town. Before we move on, I'd also like to talk about the game's soundtrack as it's very controversial. You can find endless debates online where people are saying,
"You fucking idiot! You're wrong! You mental baboon! Sonic Spinball's music is an abortion of sound design!"
No. Sonic Spinball's music is the best thing ever.
Yeah, I think we'll just leave these guys alone for now, shall we? My take on it personally is that the music here is pretty mixed, as while I do enjoy pieces of music like Toxic Caves, the infamous options menu sounds like if I were to put a Tesla coil inside of my butt and then get an MRI. Seriously, this isn't very pleasant on the ears, and I even got a friend of mine to give me his honest reaction. I need you to listen to this. This is the actual music. This is in the options, and when you beat the game, this is genuinely the credits music. Okay, it's time to get into what I said earlier about mixed feelings. I admit that I'm biased due to experiences that I've had with this game as a wee child, but as this is my personal video, I think that it's okay to express my true thoughts. By the way, my biases don't affect how I objectively view the game, so I'm speaking purely from a subjective personal opinion here. It's a bit weird to say out loud now as an adult, but when I look back, I think this game used to scare me a little. Sonic Spinball just feels a bit off. The game looks great, but the Sega Genesis sound chip provides the game's audio with a very harsh, robotic sound, and it's not very inviting. Compared to the upbeat and groovy instrumentation of the mainline Sonic games on the Genesis, the compositions in Sonic Spinball are the polar opposite, and it feels like some of them just don't fit the game. They're all very loud and abrasive, and I remember being asked to turn the TV's volume down when I would play the game as a kid. This next point also sounds kind of stupid out loud, but as a child, I always thought the game had a very grungy atmosphere, and while older me now loves that style of presentation from other 90s games, I still get weirded out a bit when playing Sonic Spinball. The dark backdrops and environments that feature a mix of nature and machinery are admittedly very well done on a technical and graphical level, but I wasn't used to seeing anything like this back when I was a kid, and I think that the game's cold presentation style really threw me for a loop. Going back to the gameplay now, Sonic himself also doesn't feel very responsive, as he feels much slower than in the mainline games. It often feels like you're moving him underwater, and this can really mess with your sense of direction. Even I can roll faster than Sonic, and I have the athleticism of Helen Keller, so there's no excuse for everyone's favorite blue hedgehog. I'm no expert, but I think what's happening is that my vivid memories of playing Sonic Spinball as a kid is still having a direct impact on how I view the game nowadays, and unless I undergo some transformative meditation ritual in the Himalayas, I don't think that my views will ever change. Honestly, I think that Sonic Spinball is just kind of average, as while the visuals and novelty of the gameplay are pretty nice, everything else isn't too entertaining, at least in my opinion. I never managed to finish this game back then because I would often get bored and just start playing Streets of Rage 2 instead, and over 10 years later, nothing has changed. I'm still thinking about Sonic Spinball, I'm still playing Streets of Rage 2, and I'm still going absolutely nowhere in life. And with that, I think we've rolled on over to the conclusion, boys and girls. I'd recommend trying Sonic Spinball out if you like weirder games from yesteryear, but I'd be lying if I said you're guaranteed to enjoy it, as I feel that this game is a bit of an acquired taste. Sonic acting as a pinball in the middle of an obstacle course is actually a pretty cool idea, and had the developers been given more time to create the game, it could have been something truly special. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate it, and feel free to leave a suggestion in the comments for a game that you'd like to see next. Make sure to take care, and I'll see you in the next episode of Segalicious.